7 o'clock, the meeting will come to order. I'm Grace Lesperance, Cascade Township Supervisor. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Northhook.
Here.
Trustee McDonald.
Here.
Supervisor Lesperance.
Here.
Treasurer Corstond.
Here.
Trustee Kessel.
Here.
Trustee Shipley.
Present.
And Clerk Slater here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion or discussion for approval of tonight's agenda?
Shipley makes a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Nordhook to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have one presentation this evening, a quarterly update from our Parks Committee. Parks Committee has worked extremely hard and done an outstanding job of implementing action steps that further the township's overall main priority, preserving green space and preserving our unique character while enhancing quality of life for our residents. Probably the biggest step that the Parks Committee has undertaken is part of our internal staff realignment. We no longer have a community development director that oversees a Parks Committee that meets quarterly, 4 times a year. We now have a full-time Parks Director instead that meets monthly. So we are delighted. Ms. Ginny Wanty, we'll introduce you first.
It is just the greatest pleasure to introduce to you the new Parks Director, Melanie Mannion. She was the Natural Resource Manager. I always want to say supervisor, manager in Ottawa County Parks for 13 years. Before that, she was at the Land Conservancy. And then before that, which is, I think, when we met at Blandford about 20 some odd years ago, but she has just hit the ground running, and I hope you'll have some opportunity to get to chat with her a little bit. And she's going to do the quarterly report, and I'm going away. Melanie.
Turning over the reins, as we say. So thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to give you this quarterly report. Again, this is what has happened prior to in our first quarter. I was not here for most of it, so much of what I'm reporting on, it was done by Ginny and the committee and many others. So we want to begin. One of the way that Ginny and I first met actually was through the West Michigan Conservation Network. And so we want to promote this organization because it is a great organization that connects over 60 different organizations that are trying to move forward with conservation of Michigan's natural features. And part of that is the DNR, our parks departments, but it's also private industry and private individuals. So it's a wonderful organization. And for our first time, Cascade Township is hosting one of our partner events. So what you see up here is our upcoming, as in tomorrow, our Oak Wilt program that will be focusing on the efforts that Cascade Township has done in managing Oak Wilt at Burton Park. We already had one of these for the homeowners a few weeks ago as kind of a preliminary one, but this next one is actually open to all of West Michigan Conservation Network partners and members within their organization. So we do encourage, if you're interested in coming, it is tomorrow again here at the library, and then we'll be doing a hike with Heidi Fry, who is a forester for the DNR and one of the leading experts in the state on oak wilt. And then we'll also be then going to Burton Park and looking at the work that was done there. Also, very strange twist of events. Our West Michigan Conservation Network annual meeting will be held at Kent County Parks new facility, which is absolutely beautiful. It will be on the Grand River Greenway, and the staff from Ottawa County Parks, where I used to work, will be presenting on this very long and amazing journey in creating a 36-mile-long trail along the Grand River. And then following that, again, very strangely, Ben Swayze in his new role will be presenting on the continuation of the Greenway into Kent County. So I do have a couple flyers over on the table. If you're interested in coming, we highly recommend it. It'll be a good time. And then we wanted to give you an update on some of the things that are in the master plan. The first one is just to keep you in the loop that the Parks Committee is still moving forward with discussion of how to fund both the maintenance of our parks and pathways in addition to potential land acquisition through the potential of having a millage in 2024. We'll have an update for you in June. Oh, back. It's okay. And then we will also wanted to let you know that we are continuing to work on the White Cliff plan for that trailhead park. We will also are working on the Cascade Recreational Park plan. And this is where we are looking at we had a survey of not only the people that use the park, but also of our staff of what needs are within that park so that we can develop a master plan to help do some improvements to kind of update and refresh that park. And so we'll be working on that very soon now that we have a coalition of the feedback from those, the constituents. And finally, later on in the agenda, you'll notice that there will be an update to the bylaws. The committee did a great job of doing bylaws last year and bringing them up to date. But one of the goals was, again, to get a director. And now that there is a director, we had to modify that and make it so that the planning director is no longer there and that it'll be the parks director. But we'll go over that in the new business. We also, just as a reminder, we do have a contract with Kent Conservation District. This is a great partnership to help us, again, build capacity to do invasive species work and utilizes their expertise. This quarter, they worked on 6 different species that you can see here, from barberry, garlic mustard, bittersweet, autumn olive, honeysuckle, and poison hemlock at 3 different parks. This is one of those species. This is Japanese knotweed. This is one of the worst invasives in the entire planet. It is incredibly difficult to manage for, and having the expertise of the Conservation District came in handy. If you'll notice, this is the before, this came in on nursery stock. And then this is the after of their treatments. Unfortunately, during the monitoring of the site, Ginny did notice a new population has emerged. And that will be treated this spring.
Which location is this?
Thank you. This is at the cemetery on 30th Street. And again, this is one that is very difficult to manage. They say that there is, at this point, no person can prove that they can successfully eradicate it on the planet. But we hope to be able to at least contain it.
This is the one that has the potential to creep into caskets and other
Yes.
solid structures.
Or foundations of homes or sidewalks or any of your asphalt. So
Melanie, I did conquer it in my yard, but it took 5 years.
I will say the MDOT thought that they had conquered it in their yard. Well, and the minute they put a backhoe to replace the sign, it came back. So you may have it. And I've known a lot of people who have had the same thing where they no longer see leaves, foliar, but the minute you disturb the soil, it was just waiting there dormant. I've yet to find a person that is successfully completely to put a shovel in there. And if it doesn't come back, you'll get an award. Okay. And finally, you will hear a common theme amongst my presentations over in the future, and that is really building through community. And so right now we have a wonderful volunteer force, thanks almost entirely to the Parks Committee and Ginny Wanty and the Kent Conservation District. They have led almost all of our work days up to this point, but it really is limited by the amount of time that we either pay the Conservation District or have our Parks Committee. And so we also have a few individuals that dedicate their time, and you might have seen in the last newsletter, Janine Heibel has put in over 200 hours already. And so we're very excited to have her, but we hope to have a lot more Janines. And so that's a goal of ours, because not only does that build our capacity to do more work, but it also is really helping us inform our community so that we can prevent invasives coming in from their properties. And it also connects them to our parks in a more intimate way than just walking down the trail. With that in mind, we hope to see many of you out at our future work days. Again, we have one that'll be in July, led by the Kent Conservation District, removing Bittersweet from Burton Park. And then we have another one at Cascade Peace Park in August, removing Autumn Olive with our parks or with our building and ground staff and our Parks Committee.
We'd love to see all of you there.
And we would love to see all of you there.
Hopefully it's not on a Wednesday night.
I don't remember. Thursday. I was going to say, I think it was a Thursday. Any questions?
I've got one, and I'm sure that you've been briefed about the importance of this subject, and we were assured that you probably had some new insight on it. It's called controlling the white-tailed deer in Michigan. For more specifically in Cascade Township. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Funny thing, my very first task when I was at Ottawa County Parks was to start a deer management program. And the very first thing that Ben brought to my table was the deer management program here. It was a common thread here. So yes, I am very comfortable with the subject, and it is something that I jumped right into. I met one of the constituents, Jeff, and we met, and he, and then I've also, of course, I know Rob Keys personally. He did a deer study at one of my parks in Ottawa County. And I also have read his report. So at this point, I've developed a plan, a proposal that I'm going to give to the Parks Committee to review, just steps to get us to the point of decision making. I understand that there are a lot of people that are coming to you and voicing their concerns, and I do believe that there is an issue. Unfortunately, it is one of those issues that can be very controversial and can be very emotional. And so there are a lot of steps to get to the point of being able to manage for them. Education is the most important step of all, and we can't skip that. Neither is the communication necessary in helping people understand what the issue is. And so again, I've created a plan. I've contacted our DNR officer for the region, Nick Helgis, and I haven't heard back from him yet, but I hope to bring him on site, show him Rob's report, show him what I am seeing on the site, and hopefully he can be an advocate for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. I just have some positive feedback for you. I was walking to my mailbox today and one of my neighbors stopped me and wanted to talk about, she had met you at the Oakville workshop earlier in the month of May and just gave really positive feedback about you and that it was a pleasure to meet you, and just kind of reiterated what everybody has said, that we are really lucky to have you here in Cascade Township. So
You make me blush. Thank you.
I received an email saying the same thing from one of the residents who's very interested in the deer management.
Great.
So I think he's pleased that it's no longer right in front of us and it's in front of qualified professionals.
And we will make progress on it. It might be slower than some people want, but we will make steps towards making progress.
One other comment. As far as importance to the residents of the township, the parks and the walking trails are probably on the top of the list or near it. Anything that your department needs, and I understand that you're coupled with the grounds and buildings department, which is a perfect marriage there. Make sure that you voice your needs and don't be afraid to say, hey, in order to move forward, this is what we need to do for the residents.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I will say I'm a very frugal person. Again, I come from Ottawa County, very frugal person, right? But also one of the things that my mentor taught me is that people in West Michigan will spend money on quality of life. If they feel that you are buying something that will help improve the quality of their life, the longevity of their life, AKA good parks, they're willing to invest. And so if I come to you, it will be only with things that I believe are going to improve the quality of the life of your constituents.
Cool.
And before we ask the community or through you for any more money, the board will make sure that we've communicated properly how our current funds are spent. So.
And I want to thank Ginny and Grace and all of the people who've come before me, because they have made fertile ground for me to be able to take and help this Parks Department grow. So we have a lot of great stuff happening and I'm hoping a lot more will come very soon.
Thank you for the update and for joining our team. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you.
Article 6, approval of the consent agenda. Motion or discussion? Oh, sorry. Public comments first. Now's the time to comment on anything on tonight's agenda. Please state your name and address for record keeping and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you. When I see, if there's other comments too, because this may be a long meeting tonight, feel free to make them at the beginning if they're not on the agenda.
Dorothy Cribbs, 1980 Deerfield Court, Southeast. I noticed on the agenda that we're going to be looking at the Personnel and Finance Committee, which at the last meeting I've been to a lot of these meetings, and I didn't understand that the Finance and Personnel Committee was the one that didn't get people put in place for it. And after hearing what our new treasurer said, I agree. This is a really important committee, and we may have been operating fine without it. But it's important to have. I'm an accounting finance person and business person, and it's very important to have those checks and balances in place and to have that committee. So I really encourage us to go ahead and get this in place, because that is something that's very important for transparency and all, and make sure that everything is being followed. The other thing too that was brought up at the last meeting, and that's not on the agenda, but it's the conflict of interest form. And that is also something that is really important to transparency. And I don't see that on the agenda. I don't know what we need to do. I thought that form was already approved, so I thought that it would be being used, and I'm not sure what we need to do to make sure that it's getting used, but we need to do that because that really, you guys need to be aware when there's conflicts. So I encourage whoever would be in charge of making sure that happens. Let's get that conflict of interest form in there and get it being used and get it out to our current vendors so that you can be made aware if there are any conflicts. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Van Solkema, welcome.
Hello. Yeah, Scott Van Solkema, 2570 Orange. I'd also like to say that the Personnel and Finance Committee would be a good thing. I've applied for 3 jobs with the Township. I see that again, the one that I most recently applied for is no longer on the website. I've never received anything back from the Human Resources Director. I also applied once for Buildings and Grounds, and then that just went away off the website, no longer there. Again, no communication from the HR lady. And again, there's now Buildings and Ground for seasonal work. You'd think maybe perhaps the HR people that would contact the people that applied for the full-time spot. Maybe, hey, are you still interested in this? You know, so basically, I believe the HR lady is sorely lacking in communication. And as a resident and taxpayer of the city or township, I feel that it does not look good on the township's behalf if people spend the time to send in applications and then not hear anything back. It's just very rude. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're not on the agenda, is that okay?
That's okay. I'd rather do it now than not have you wait.
All right, thank you.
In order.
Badri Shakodoglu, this is my son, Babak Shakodoglu. We were here last month and what is it?
You have to say the address, right? 57 28th Street.
57, yes.
Backyard.
Sorry, yes. So we were here last month and I'm not sure about the date, but 6-7 months ago, we have applied. And I guess the state has passed out. We're just waiting to see if the township is allowing us to have the liquor license. And till last month, nobody even knew that we had applied. Sarah was taking care of it before, and then Ben was taking care of it. And last month, when we were here, we were told that this month it will be voted on, and we're not even on the agenda. So we don't know what we're supposed to do anymore.
We hear you, and it will be on the next meeting's agenda. And I apologize for the poor communication on our end,
Did last time.
but it was a waiting period and
It was
it
a
needed to
week.
come.
It was not about their personal license, which is for their restaurant.
It
which is
was
what
to
she's
publish.
referring to.
It was to make the decision.
Right.
Correct.
You're right. Can you hold on 3 weeks or 2 weeks until the next board meeting?
2 weeks.
Sure.
It's 3
Yeah.
weeks, sorry.
Memorial Day. It will be on the next meeting and I apologize.
Thank you.
No
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Published that is available.
Spoke to the manager Swayze about that.
She said they applied through the state, so to me, there would be something available if they have applied.
It's
right?
my understanding, although it was my understanding it would be on. It would be this month, but that the notice requirements have been met.
So, okay.
Thank you. Any other comments in person or virtually?
If any of our Zoom participants would like to participate in this public comments section about anything that's on the agenda, please raise your hand.
Okay, we'll have another section for public comment at the end of the meeting. Article 6, approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve. Shipley supports.
It's a motion by trustee Kessel, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. We have no financial actions this evening, but I see that we have people from the Kent County Road Commission here tonight in person. And to be considerate of his time, and if there's no board objection, I wonder if we could move item 048-2023, which is under new business, to the top of the discussion tonight.
Sure. Good.
Okay. Having no objection, we'll now talk about item 048-2023, the bridge pedestrian improvements on Cascade Road over the Thornapple River. Welcome and thank you very much. Yep, yes, if you don't mind, because
I'm here for questions.
we're a little short staffed, so if you don't mind giving us the overview, I
Sure.
guarantee you know the most about it in this room.
Sure, and I'm not sure what you have in your packet, but what the road commission did provide the township a couple weeks ago, and I think it went to the DDA subcommittee, really for review, but was looking at the Cascade Road Bridge over the Thornapple River and really concerns about safety, pedestrian safety. We looked at a couple different options for that bridge to improve it within its existing structure and not building or widening the existing structure, which gets very, very expensive. Two things that we looked at, one was to actually cut the raised sidewalk down, which would give more shoulder area, would be better for bikers, but not necessarily for walkers or handicapped folks, because there would be no separation between the traffic area and the shoulder area. So the other thing we looked at was putting a railing on the traffic side. Right now, the barrier rail to keep cars from going into the river if they were to hit the curb and go up over is on the back side of the sidewalk. Well, there's a railing system that we could attach on the inside. It would require narrowing up the existing lanes on the bridge. There would still be 5 lanes, but we would take a foot away from each lane. It would make the lanes 10 to 11 feet wide. For the speed through there, that's plenty wide enough. It might also create some traffic calming, which is another concern, trying to slow cars down through the village area. So we put together an estimate. I did send a photo. I don't know if
I-
that
Is
is available or not.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
Sorry, it's in our packet and the packet. is
Okay.
just not- Yeah.
That is, if you're interested in actually looking at it, I was actually out and about on Saturday and noticed that the city of Grand Rapids had put a similar type railing on Maryland over I-96. Now, the railing would look the same, but it would be on the front side. It would be on the road side. They have this on the back side, and then there's a very tall chain link fence, and the reason for that is I-196 is below, so you've got to have a certain height to keep things from going down onto traffic. So the estimated cost to do that, because once we do move that curb in, we also have to do similar on the approaches to the bridge. So it would extend from the intersection of Thornapple all the way to Thorncrest. And estimated cost $350,000. Again, it's an estimate. We would have to advance the existing plans. What we really have provided the township so far is really a schematic. So we're very comfortable. It can be done. It would provide a 6-foot sidewalk area, a barrier on the traffic side. The barrier that's currently on the back side could remain as is, but we would recommend attaching some vertical element really for bicycles. So the inside rail and the outside rails would be at a 42-inch height, which is really what you want for a bicycle rail.
Wayne, I just want to ask, if we were to approve this, what do you think the lead time is to get started?
We would put plans together. It would probably be at least a month before the project could be bid out. The one thing we're trying to get a grasp on is fabrication of the railing. Unfortunately, with COVID, a lot of items are further out than they typically have been in the past. It's also a little bit later in the season. So if it were to be bid out, I would recommend that there would be flexibility so that you would get better bids if a contractor couldn't get it done before winter, which to us, we'd want it done by the end of October. The other option would be to complete it in the springtime.
And that, does it do both sides of the
Yes.
bridge? But not the same exactly as you explained it, right?
Actually, both sides would be similar. We would actually we would add 2 feet to that curbing. The new the railing on the inside would be mounted on top of that new curbing. Again, it would reduce the lane widths. It'd still be 5 lanes wide. The area that was problematic was the other option of cutting that sidewalk, the raised sidewalk down to the grade of the traffic. Because on the dam side or the south side, there are AT&T conduits within that, which again, could be relocated, but there could be a significant cost to that. So that particular item would have been done on one side only. So
And
this
you said-
raised with the railing would actually be both sides of the bridge.
You said you met with the DDA about this too?
No,
I was not in attendance last week. I had a conflict, but the information went to the DDA.
our
last week.
in-house engineer showed up and presented the issue along with Manager Swayze in person at the last DG meeting, and they came to the same conclusion. Recommendation.
So the walkway area between the 2 railings would be about 6 feet, which is fairly comfortable for a one-way. I mean, 2 pedestrians could pass in 6 feet. It obviously doesn't qualify as non-motorized, but you would have it on both sides of the road.
Is it fair to say, Mr. Harrell, that for that 350, 400,000 price point, it's really the only way to get actual barriers that are physically that provide actual safety more than a painted line for pedestrians and bikers?
Yes, because we'd actually mount it into the existing raised sidewalk. That's really going to be the main support. The beams on the bridge are actually what are called box beams, and they have a very shallow top, about 5 inches of concrete. So we don't really have a way to mount into those beams. We'd actually mount into the existing road face of that curbing that's there now.
And what was I know the idea of a separate pedestrian expanded area of adding on had been floated? What were the cost approximate estimates?
Very, very ballpark based on using a couple prefabricated truss type structures. I would ballpark it at about $1.5 million. And the big issue is that you have to extend the piers. So the center support on the bridge and then the abutments, the outside supports on the bridge would have to be extended. Whether you did it on the south side or the north side, what's problematic, obviously, is the building on the Thornapple River Drive side, because we would need some separation, say, probably ideally 10 feet between the road bridge for future maintenance, as well as maintenance for the trail structure. When we did the Camelback Bridge, we really incorporated it all as one unit, and doing it all new construction is much simpler than trying to retrofit it to the existing. If you were to go on the other side, my understanding is the township owns the house in the Midas
Yeah,
muffler.
But
So
they have
there-
up to
you would
10 to
have
12
room there,
years.
But that's not ideally the side I think that you're trying to address more users on. So having the separated bridge you might have to buy the other corner. And so that makes it problematic, but I think $1.5 million, and then we made the estimate on the Burton Street Bridge pedestrian at 2 million, and the estimates were coming in closer to 3 million. So this $1.5 million is really kind of just a coin toss, but I don't think it would be any less than that. And what we're seeing in bridge work is really a dramatic increase in the last couple of years. Part of it's related to materials, fabrication costs, labor costs. Some of it is just availability outright of certain types of materials. So much less cost to do this. But again, so to make it safe for walkers, ADA, older people like me. But if you're a biker like Tom, he's going to be in the road and it really isn't going to help him.
The other one won't either, though.
Are you a biker? Yeah. See? But I think for what you have for the dollars and bang for the buck, it's probably, at least at that particular crossing, probably the best option to give people going over that bridge a little more comfort and safety.
You're gonna do this on both sides of the bridge
Yes,
for 350?
yes.
Thank you.
And before
I'm
that,
not gonna do it. I mean, that's our estimate. Obviously, it does need to be bid out. But again, if you wanted to try to accelerate it to get it achieved yet this year, you potentially are gonna pay more dollars for that, because contractors are filling their plates, and many already have enough work for the year. So the bidding pool would be much less than if it was put together, bid out later this year for 2024 construction, which would be my recommendation.
and before the barrier, actual safety, physical barrier had been flushed out, am I remembering right that to shave down both sides under the first design was about 250 per side?
Yes, it was actually
500,000.
more expensive
Yep.
because we still had the issue with the railing.
And no actual barrier.
Correct.
Wayne, what do you need from us to take the next step to go to the bid process?
Well, we have a work order that Ben had signed a few months ago, and really all we've done is conceptual it. And if this is the direction that the board wants to take, the township wants to go with, then we would go in this direction, finalize plans and a bid packet. And then we're still trying to get costs and timelines from the fabricator of this railing system of how available would it be if we could get it bid out and still do it in the fall. So it really just the nod to go ahead, and we would advance to biddable documents.
I just have a question, just in general cost paying for it. The DDA had talked about maybe funding this because it is an access into the downtown area. And also the trails has talked about it. I'm just wondering what we're thinking once it gets to the end point.
It had, so funding wise, the DDA had committed to fund one side pending their approval of the design. But at that point, under the first cost estimate without the barrier, it was up to 250,000. And then the remaining funds, I believe this board approved that they would be paid for under the ARPA, American Recovery. It's all the COVID money that was coming out. So that is still good to go. And I know that our in-house engineer is ready to go. And as soon as it's put in his plate, both him and the road commission have moved promptly.
Okay, so it will be a joint thing. Between, some will be with the DDA. Okay, that was my biggest question.
We've heard very clearly that this is a priority of the people that love the pathway system, especially those that want to make the village area more walkable. And I think a big plus here is, as he pointed out also, is the potential for it to be a traffic calming device. Much like what the city's done when they're narrowed down their streets a little bit. I think it would be advisable to go forward with this, and if necessary, I'll make the motion.
When I just want to, with regard to funding, the Downtown Development Authority technically is, it's just outside of the boundaries of the DDA because it goes up to the Tuffy and Verbergs. However, we did, just to double check with legal counsel, it's still appropriate to use DDA funds for that purpose because the project benefits the businesses within that area. So
People a route into there, yeah. And
So-
I agree with what you said about, I'm also happy that it's on both sides. Because I know one side is maybe more used, but I definitely see people frequenting the other side of the bridge as well. So I think it's really, really great that we could get to this on both sides.
So John, I take it you're making a move that we authorize the road commission to move forward with the bid process?
Bingo, yes.
I would support that. Second.
it's a motion by trustee Shipley to approve moving forward with the proposed pedestrian enhancements on Cascade Road over the Thornapple River, supported by trustee McDonald. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thanks for moving me up on the agenda, and for anybody that cares, Cascade Road paving is starting tomorrow.
Good, I care. I care.
We'll
Thank
let you go, but we just appreciate it because this is one of many issues and you're doing a great job. Okay,
Thank you.
and Eric will be steering the ship. Article 8, unfinished business, item 004-2023, supervisors appointments to the Personnel and Finance Subcommittee. As I stated in my memo, the township is currently in the middle of a pretty significant transition as we search for a new manager. And reinstating a subcommittee in the Personnel Finance Committee specifically, I think would immediately and greatly enhance the board's knowledge and also ability to oversee staff and financial issues. And multiple employees have also indicated that this would be a big help for them. So like all of our subcommittees, even though it's advisory only, we will be complying with the Open Meetings Act, which means the public is welcome to attend, has the ability to comment, and it will be properly posted on our website. And again, any decision-making that requires board approval will be still at the regular meetings. Questions, comments,
I move to approve these appointments.
Support.
I have just a comment.
comments, discussion?
I have a comment. Maybe discussion. Just looking through, as somebody new to the board, I think it's somewhat frustrating. I was kind of doing some digging on the website to see history of this committee and to see prior minutes, prior agendas, and just a general statement as, somebody who lives in the township, that it's quite frustrating that these meetings prior to 2020, correct? Is that when you started? It's 2020. 2020 was the first ones I could find on the website that were actually posted. The agendas, the minutes and such were posted. And just making a general comment about transparency when we talk about starting this committee back up and just knowing that this will be a public meeting for people to come to, that there will be agendas posted. I just think it's really, really important for the community to know that.
The resident who brought up the conflict of interest form, that's a perfect example of, we've known about it, we've pushed it, but internally, within staff, it hasn't happened in over a year. So that's a great example of something that's important, that's needlessly been delayed, and the lack of the ability of this board to more actively oversee it has been a hindrance.
Yeah, and I have that on my little note here too, that is a prime example of why we need this committee currently. Is things like that the committee can work together with staff being at the meetings as well to get these things implemented and get them completed and to get follow-up and to make sure things are done correctly.
I didn't say to, these are the same appointments that the board rejected the prior times that I put them up for approval with a 4-3 vote. It's the supervisor, the current treasurer, and trustee Timmy Nordhook. So this is the exact same, other than the fact that we now have a new treasurer. Further discussion? So that was a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Kessel. Is that correct?
Yep.
To approve the reinstatement of the Personnel Finance Committee. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee McDonald?
Yes.
Trustee Kessel?
Yes.
Trustee Shipley?
Yay.
Trustee Nordhook?
Yes.
Treasurer Correspondence?
Yes.
Clerk Slater? No. Supervisor Lesbrunz?
Yes. Motion carried. New business. Item 045, 2023. Resolution to amend the Parks Committee bylaws. Welcome, Ms. Mannion, and thank you for the overview.
Thank you. Twice in one meeting. Begin with the statement of my position as the director. The Parks Committee looked at the bylaws that they had updated last year and realized that there needed to be a change from having the staff person relating with them as the planning director to be the parks director. So that is the main change between the existing bylaws and the current bylaws that we're proposing. In addition to that, there was one typo. And then the last was making it so because the parks director is the recording secretary, but as we currently have it, it's our administrative assistant that actually is taking the minutes, and then our secretary approves them. So it just added the language of having it in the minutes being prepared by or at the direction of the recording secretary. So they're two very minor changes, but we just would like to have your approval.
Were there any other changes other than those?
Two minor ones? No.
Discussion, motion?
Motion to approve.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Kessel, supported by treasurer Corstange to approve the amended bylaws. As stated, all in favor, or Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Treasurer Correspondence?
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook?
Yes.
Trustee Shipley?
Yay.
Trustee Kessel?
Yes.
Trustee McDonald?
Yes.
Clerk Slater? Yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Monty, for spearheading those edits. Item 046, 2023, approval of type 2 special use permit for a trucking terminal facility at 5610 and 5620 Craft Avenue. Planning Director Hilbrunz, welcome and thank you for the overview.
Thank you. So here the applicant is requesting a type 2 special use permit to allow for a trucking terminal to be located at 5610 and 5620 Craft Avenue. This site is located on the east side of Craft between 52nd and 60th Streets and is in the transitional industrial zoning district. Type 2 special use requires a public hearing at the planning commission for a recommendation to the township board for final approval. The facility being requested here would include 2 phases with about 40,000 square foot building located in the front lots and approximately 16,000 square foot building located on a rear lot. The 2 existing lots along Craft will have to be reconfigured to allow for this. So if the special use permit is approved, the applicant will then need to apply for a lot line reconfiguration, which is a staff review. Both buildings will include warehouse and office space, as well as a service area in the phase 1 building. So these uses require a total of 68 parking spaces, and the plan does show there to be 68 spaces provided. The plans will also meet the setback height and buffer yard requirements of the zoning district. The trucking facility is required to maintain a 100-foot setback from the front property line and 50-foot setback from all others, and the facility does appear to meet those requirements as well. Trucking terminal is required to have a 500-foot setback from any residential zoning district. There is an ARC zoned parcel to the northwest. The site plan indicates the 500 setback from the property, and all of the facility areas are kept out of that setback. There is also a home located immediately adjacent to the facility at 5640 Craft, but because that parcel is already and also zoned transitional industrial, that 500 setback would not then apply to that parcel. The project has 1 proposed curb cut onto Craft Avenue, which will need to be permitted by the road commission. The grading for the driveway extends onto the neighboring property, so approval will be needed for by the neighbor to allow for that work, and I know the applicant's already been working on that as well. An extensive landscape plan has been submitted that meets township requirements, and a landscape bond in the amount of no less than $69,000 should be submitted. The photometric plan has also been submitted that does meet township regulations. The fire and building departments both reviewed and approved the plans, as well as the township engineer, and signed off on them. And the engineer noted that a stormwater maintenance agreement would need to be provided as well. So when reviewing a type 2 special use permit, the township is required to review a number of factors that are listed in chapter 17 of the zoning ordinance and also included in the staff report. And it does appear that the facility will meet all of those requirements of chapter 17. The planning commission held a public hearing on this matter at their May 15 meeting and recommended approval of the special use with staff conditions. And at this time, staff are recommending that you approve the special use permit for the trucking terminal with the 7 conditions that are listed in the staff report.
Motion discussion?
Brian, is the applicant good with the conditions?
Yes, they didn't, at the planning commission, they didn't indicate any concern with them. And they are here as well if you have questions for the applicant.
Thanks.
Welcome. And feel free to speak or say anything if you'd like. Trustee Shipley?
I think that this is a perfect example of the proper use of our zoning in the general area of where it is. Brian, did you say that the road commission is going to do any improvements on Craft? I know that area is a little sketchy as far as width and condition of road surface.
They had done some recently, I know, and it is classified as a trucking route by the road commission already. So it's anticipated to be able to accommodate heavy truck traffic. But I don't know if they have specifically any new ones planned right at this time.
Okay.
Planning Commission has done a great job on this, and also thank you, Director Hilbrins.
Make a motion to approve subject to the staff's 9 conditions.
Shipley supports.
That's a motion to approve the proposed special use permit, subject to the amendments noted in Director Hilbrand's memo. Clerk Slater, or I'm sorry, that was made by Trustee Kessel and supported by Trustee Shipley. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Shipley,
Yay.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
treasurer Correspondent,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you for choosing Cascade to invest your money and also taking the time to come in person tonight. We're looking forward to seeing more of you. Next, item 047-2023. This would be the public hearing regarding the proposed camping and storage of personal property ordinance. For background, this was brought to the board by our community policing officer, Deputy Omar Diepa, with the Kent County Sheriff's Department. And it was in response to some of the public safety issues that have gotten a lot more intense around the overpass on 28th Street, the expressway overpass. And the first one being the ongoing and disproportionate amount of crime, which requires our police and fire response at several of the hotels. And we're working with legal counsel to legally and effectively recoup some of those costs and put that burden back on those business owners. That will be up in front of the board soon. This particular ordinance is in response to the public camping that has popped up around the overpass and in the clover leaves that has brought on some public safety concerns like fires. And this would allow the township's community policing officers or the sheriff's department to directly address those issues rather than waiting for MDOT to handle that for us. So this has been again reviewed by the Kent County Sheriff's Department and then by our legal counsel. So we'll have a public hearing. We'll open it up for public hearing. Try to answer any question.
I move we go into public hearing.
Support. It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by treasurer Corstange to enter public hearing for any public comments regarding the camping and storage of personal property ordinance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are now in open session. Is the time for anyone wishing to comment to come forward? Mr. Van Silkemo.
Now, this is regarding just public property owned by either the government or what have you. It doesn't constitute someone camping at Meyer. That's still private property, right?
Correct, which requires permission by the property owner to the sheriff's department to evict those people.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to set up camp at our beautiful 2-parcel lot along Thornapple River, that would be where this would fall into place.
Correct, and these are public meetings, so maybe we gave someone the good idea tonight, but hopefully not.
Well, it is a nice spot, you know, that's owned by the township. So just curious, but so just wanted to touch base on that. And any of the parks, this would encompass that as well, correct? So the bridges, parks, anything owned by government per se.
Correct.
Okay, all right. But yeah, no, sounds like a good plan and a good way to tackle any future issues. So.
Is there anyone virtually, Ms. Brott?
If anyone virtually would like to participate in this public comment, please raise your hand.
Is there a motion to close public hearing on this matter?
Ripley makes a motion to close public hearing.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article B, the board will now consider the approval of the said recommendation of the said ordinance. Discussion, motion,
Motion to approve.
Support.
discussion.
I just want to add that I think it's a necessary ordinance, but I think what's really good is we certainly understand there are homeless issues that are very complex, and we're not able to deal with those homeless issues. But it's nice to know that in the ordinance there, when there are violations, there's a process to ensure that any violators of the ordinance can be voluntarily connected to resources to help the homeless conditions. So this isn't, you know, this is a well thought out ordinance by staff and by our legal counsel. So yeah, I think it's a really good ordinance.
And that's a good point. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm probably gonna say the same thing you were gonna say, that it also includes transportation to the shelter. So we're not near shelters, but it also provides that transportation from the location to the shelter, which is important.
And as part of us getting to this point, Deputy Yeppa worked very closely with MDOT, but also the specific, the resources that are available primarily more in the city of Grand Rapids, and the unanimous message that we see that Deputy Yeppa received from the different agencies, different homeless nonprofit agencies, are that the individuals that come out and were camping are ones that declined to take advantage of the resources available to them, and instead chose to come out here rather than abide by the rules that are required within those assisted
But we still
areas.
offer them
100%.
opportunity versus just carting them away.
We give them a ride back to the agencies, whichever one they choose, and yes, 100%. We've been doing that.
Okay, good.
And we also confirmed that those resources are available. So yeah, good point. Okay, and that was a motion by
Myself.
trustee Kessel, supported by trustee Nordhook, to approve the ordinance regarding camping and storage of personal property. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yay.
treasurer Correspondence,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Article 049-2023. Manager Search Committee. A few different issues here. First, as we move the direction to find a great manager as quickly as possible. The search committee or the staff under the search committee's direction prepared the literature you have in front of you. So specifically a job posting, a community brochure that applicants would look at to learn more about Cascade when making the decision if they want to apply. And that was done by Sabo PR firm when we posted the Parks Director position. And then internally, staff upgraded that and expanded it, made that a little bit better for the manager position. And then the job description was already available and really unchanged. So that literature, after several meetings, is ready to go, hasn't been shared publicly. But up for discussion. And then also interim manager, the HR director had posted the interim job posting. And we have, in the last several days, received several applicants, I think 4 or 5. And we also have been in contact with our legal firm, Foster Swift, who today had a couple candidates that they'd worked personally with and and know that they're willing to put their hat in the ring for interim manager. So we can move swiftly on that. Lastly, the issue is the decision whether to use our full-time HR staff to post the literature on the websites that we know consultants use, or to send it out to a consultant firm. HR Director Murawski reached out proactively to multiple consulting firms, and the search committee interviewed 2 of them. There was another person that, for whatever reason, wasn't able to attend. So tonight, questions, discussions, board action on any and all of these. And I anticipate that this will require a special meeting, 18 hours notice, but we need to act promptly. So just so you know that.
Got a question. How far down the road does the search committee think it's gonna take to find a permanent person for this vacancy? And what I'm getting to,
It's flexible.
what I'm getting to is if it's more than 3, 4, or 5 months, then an interim manager may be necessary. However, if it's gonna be just 4 weeks, 5 weeks, do we really need to go out and search twice? Once for an interim manager and once for a permanent manager? Especially since I see some of the potential costs if we use these search companies to find them.
And do you think that the interim manager we went ahead and posted for and could be done, if we went that route, could be done quite quickly?
Yeah, and I think during the process, of course, along with the long-term goal, getting the right person in, immediately we tried to get that job description up and posted for the interim, so that if there was a potential, if we did have some candidates for that, we could be doing that parallel with the long-term search, because the long-term search is an unknown. I mean, truly, we have no idea how long it could take us to find the right fit for that position. So we were truly working both of those parallel to quickly get the interim out, and then also to be working on these
Oh, and
things for the long term.
our human resource director, the interim list that's posted on, I believe, the MML's website. She reached out to all those candidates, and then posted it. And I believe she did that midweek.
I think it might have been the week before, the end of the
Maybe.
week before, maybe.
Friday,
They're all
wasn't it?
blending together.
Yep. I
I
know.
think it was
sorry.
Friday.
So
Put
it
it
was nice to know that we had 4 or 5 responses within several days, but then also really reassuring that then that our legal firm who practices municipal law all over the state had a candidate who potentially might be interested, that they'd already worked with. If we choose to go that route.
You're talking to a skeptical person here, okay? And,
That's why we pay you the big bucks.
and if any of these candidates expect to sit at home and do their job remotely, they are damn well wrong. I don't expect to hire somebody to help facilitate the township office for the residents who isn't there in person resolving the problems or coordinating the solutions.
I think that I understand what you're saying.
I'm glad.
The one thing I think we did talk about though was the potential, I guess, if we go the interim route of doing a kind of per diem pay type thing, where if they could not, like if they cannot, because a lot of these people are either retired or, you know, have worked in this business before and are retired, such like that, or have other businesses they're working. So we did talk about maybe doing a per diem rate where if they work 20 hours a week for the township, like you said, potentially it would be hopefully in person, because that's what we would need, but we would be only paying them for the hours that they were working for us. And I think that's a big piece to it, especially in the interim, that might be an option.
I don't know if this influences your thinking, but
Probably not, but go ahead.
but in the absence of a manager, including an interim with a set schedule, then the fallback position is your current supervisor, a publicly elected official, as the chief administrative official as well. So in the absence of an actual manager with those trained skills, you would be dealing with, and staff would be dealing with, a rusty attorney / stay-at-home mom who's pretty underpaid. I could go either way. I'm not going to drop the ball, but just
Right, and I will say, just when we talk about remote things, there are some things with accounts payable or electronic fund transfers that Grace and I are taking over in the interim, and those are things that you do not have to be there to do. I will say that.
That's one of the things that I brought up at a previous meeting, is that we've spent a lot of time selecting the right people in the right seats in that township office. So this question is still in the back of my little pea brain head, that do we really need an interim manager? But I'll let the committee explore that and the methods of that, longevity of that, and the contractual of that. And I'll be a patient person until next meeting.
likely a special meeting, given the need to move quickly.
The posting that was prepared said anticipated start date of June 5th. I don't think that's realistic, because that's about a little over a week away before in the end of next week.
Right.
And it doesn't say, and I don't know what the committee's thoughts were on this, but it doesn't say anything about being a township resident. So that is the idea that any person, regardless of where they live, that meets these requirements could fulfill the interim manager position.
Yes, because that's a law. And we talked about that. I thought, as when you were the chair of the Personnel Finance Committee, that legally we can't control, or it is illegal to require a city manager, a township manager to be a resident. It used to be, but they changed the law. So the only thing we can do, and this applies to interims as well, is offer a financial carrot, which we did previously. And the same, there's no different here.
Years ago, the fire department had to change their selection policy of full-time firefighters based upon that same law. So consequently, they got some full-timers that live in Hudsonville.
And even though we can't require it, if you've got someone who's an actual resident too, and that's their town versus someone who works here but goes home and considers somewhere else their community, it doesn't hurt to have someone with skin in the game.
I think you're moving on the right path. I think realistically, this is probably going to be a 2 to 4 month process. We want to do it right. These guys who you've contacted have a process. They're very professional processes, and I think we should follow those. And so realistically, again, it's probably 2 to 4 months. Because of that, I think we do need an interim person. We set the ground rules in terms of do they work remotely or not? I would say no, of course not. A township manager needs to be in constant communication with his people. So, and if we pay him on a per diem basis, you come in 3 days a week, 4 days a week, or 5 days a week, whatever we decide. You know, we set the ground rules, and I think the subcommittee or the committee can determine what those ground rules should be. And I think we should move forward, looking for an interim manager, and establish those ground rules and see if they fit the bill. Because again, if we need them for 2 weeks or we need them for 2 or 3 months, again, we determine that as well. This isn't a full-time position.
All good points, Tom.
Now, tonight, what are you looking for in this item? Because we've got these proposals in our packet. I reviewed them all. Are you looking to put the board to make a decision on one, or what are you looking for tonight?
This is my opinion, is that I think kind of what Tom just said, I think is what we're looking for right now, is that we're kind of going down the right path. And then, you know, when we get to a point where we need board approval, Supervisor Lesperance will call a special meeting at that point in time, and we will all come back together and we will make those decisions. And I think that by doing it that way with special meetings, especially considering our next board meeting's not for 3 weeks, that gives us the ability to be flexible. If we do look at, for instance, interim candidates and we find somebody that we think might fit the bill, it gives us the option to move on that rather quickly versus waiting for scheduled board meetings. But it also gives the subcommittee or committee the ability to dig deep and look at all of these things.
So we don't really have to consider a search firm for township manager tonight.
I don't think so.
I think we're not quite at that.
Okay.
Very, very impressed that we have 7 candidates for interim.
And are these 3 firms?
We have a couple, excuse me, for also permanent that came in on their own.
Are these 3 firms the only ones that we have an RFP from?
I think we've got a couple feelers out to some other ones that we're waiting to hear back from.
Did the geez, I can't talk. Michigan Municipal League submit anything?
I don't believe they did, but I do believe that our human resources director reached out to them.
Because they were very helpful when we searched for Ben. But, okay, that's all I wanted to know. I was very impressed with one of the firms, so
You weren't?
I was.
You was, yeah.
Yeah. One more so than the other 2.
Jim, what do you think with taking just a couple weeks of putting our posting out on all of these websites that these firms put them out on and just see what we gather?
It doesn't hurt. But I think John and whoever else said it is right. This is an important search for us. And I think, as Tom said, we need an interim because I wouldn't rush the process of the manager. So if we put feelers out, I think we tried that before. It may be a different market now. There might be more people available that want to serve as a township manager. We didn't have that luck the last 2 searches we did. So maybe this time we would. I mean, it doesn't hurt because I think you're looking at the right way of going about it and finding an interim for now. And John, you're right, they got to be in the office, but we can set the hours and we need that person to, you know, even tonight we were fumbling a little bit. And so I think that's important in that person, but I think it's also important to take the time to get it right.
Agreed.
I don't disagree.
Clerk Slater?
So what I hear you all saying is you think that possibly on our own, we might be able to find the interim manager based on the feedback we've already gotten.
Perhaps.
And that will help us determine the next step where we may need to hire a firm that specializes at a later date possibly. Is that what I
Yeah,
hear y'all
yeah,
saying?
I think that we should give it a go
For sure.
for a few weeks just to see if,
Throw your fishing pole in the well.
yeah, I want to throw some bait out there and see
Yep.
what happens. But yeah, if it doesn't work out, then yeah, we gotta go with the firm.
And we
I
look,
keep calling it a net.
so Caledonia is ahead of us a little bit, but they're doing the exact same search. And then Traverse City, there's been a couple other places that this is the same thing, and staff, when they were preparing the literature, that proposed literature, looked at it, and that's how we knew, you know, that's what it's based off of. So we did this ourselves, and the websites that we put the postings on are the exact same 3 to 4 that the search firms use. So what we're lacking is the personal relationships with the same candidates that they're already working to put in other places. Having said that, it's agreed that it's a small pool, people who are looking to locate to West Michigan and who do the job as a municipal manager already know that Cascade Township is looking.
For sure.
Cascade Township is a desirable.
And we purposely, I recommend we put the pay grade just a little bit higher than Caledonia Township. So if they haven't made their decision, we can cherry pick from them. But they wrote the $15,000 check to the consultant, and those same people are willing to drive 5 minutes north for a higher paying job.
You're not wrong.
So this has been just, I mean,
It's been a lot going on.
I'm tired thinking about all the different, and we've also consulted with our legal counsel too. I don't think if we cast the net, someone had said, who was encouraging the hiring and to write the $15,000 check, if you don't immediately hire them, then they're not going to want to come back later if you need them. And I think based on our interviews, that is completely not true. There's no gun to the head. There's no consultants are pretty easy to hire.
So we don't need.
All right, so how about this? Moving forward. This board likely will have a special meeting, hopefully next week, to discuss interim candidates, the specific candidates, as well as structure, pricing, schedule. That will be 1. 2, in the meantime, we will go ahead and post 3 to 4 websites, the same ones that the consultant used, our job posting, updated with the right date.
As soon as possible.
Tomorrow. And then we will go ahead and post and then postpone, but not make any decisions yet on whether or not to engage a consultant. Does that sound like a good move?
Sure.
Any specifics that we should flush out while we're all here together that I missed?
One thing that we won't get searching ourselves. We found that using a search firm the last time, it was amazing how they knew the people already that applied. They knew where they applied and why they weren't selected.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have that advantage. We're gonna see a resume from an individual and not have that background. So I don't object to doing that way, but I think if we hire one of the firms that are in our packet tonight and use them, they're gonna know these people ahead of time, the good, the bad, the ugly. And it'll be a lot less time consuming for us if they weed them out.
I will say, 1, I know all of these companies are going to be listening to this meeting. But 2, so I'm going to try not to burn too many bridges, but 2, there was a lot of discussion during our interviews with these companies. So we do know several candidates that have applied at other places. And whether or not they were selected and why they were not selected just during our interview process. I will say they were very forthcoming with some information to us.
So you got some of that already.
We did. Which I hate to disclose too much because I know they're listening, but
It's a good.
We get
thing.
it. Enough said. Thank you.
we get it.
They were all very professional, and
Yep.
we appreciate their willingness to serve Cascade.
And their interviews were wonderful. They were very helpful in answering all of our questions. Everyone that we interviewed, the 2 that we actually interviewed that did get dates for interviews and showed up, they were Wonderful.
Good.
Okay.
The most important thing, I think, is that people who have, there may be a few outliers, but generally, people who are interested, it's a small group, right? And the people who are in the know, one, know what the consult, who they are and what they do, and two, the people who are gonna apply have been looking, and there's only a couple places to look, so everybody knows. So I guess the proof's in the pudding. And the first step that they would do is pretty much the identical posting with the identical literature, which we've got. So to go ahead and post on our own, knowing that we may need their expertise is probably a really great fiscally responsible but proactive step.
Well, we got a free ad when Ben went on the news and said he's moving. Everybody saw that.
The way the fee structure works, which totally makes sense, is that these people, because they have the relationship, they know, and they have different candidates that may be interested that they could reach out to. And, but the candidates, which makes sense, don't pay. It's the municipality that then hires the, consultant who then brings in the candidates. So, how do you say it?
You're not paying a finder's fee.
No, and it makes sense,
Yeah.
but I think it's the same website, so we'll see. All right, so how about, did I make the motion or do I need to?
You just
don't
need a statement. Yeah.
I don't think we
You
need.
you just made sure we were all on the same page.
Yeah, same thing.
Fine.
Further questions, concerns?
I have a question. So are you taking action? No, okay.
That's what I. Well, I think it technically, I think it'd be smart to formally take board action to post, because otherwise I don't think it's,
Shipley makes a motion to have the position posted for interim manager.
I don't know.
And can we also?
no, sorry, we're already gone with
Yeah,
that. Post for
main-
permanent.
The permanent.
Apologize.
Correction, permanent manager.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald to post the job posting for permanent manager. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. We have no discussion items. Public comments. Oh, man, we don't have Ben tonight. You again?
Brian Holcomb, 3415 Glenstone Court, Southeast. Good evening. Talked to Mr. Walter Bujak back there and he sent an email out and the Red Cedar Properties / Egypt Creek Landscaping. They did not file silt permit or erosion permits back when he did the damage. They didn't even require it, Eagle, didn't even require it to restore it. He inquired about that. We have to make another inquiry with the DEQ, Eagle. Well, we seem not to get anywhere with them. I don't care if he got fined. That wasn't the purpose. The purpose was to put back the property that he destroyed. He didn't do that. The PUD, which is Cascade's PUD, and you, the board, can make him do what he's supposed to do. He's in violation of the PUD. So what I'm recommending is we will submit to you, the board, what needs to be done, what should have been done in the beginning. He needs to restore the trees. Now, granted, he can't put back 7,500-foot trees, but all he did to the DEQ was put seedlings in. That doesn't do anything. It's going to take years, if not decades, before something grows. And I'm pretty sure that most of the people that live around it, we don't like seeing the 30-some cars, which shouldn't be on his property, and some of them don't move at all. So that'll be in our proposal too, but we will give you a proposal if you want to give it to your lawyers. But it's time for the Cascade board to do something about him and his violation. He shouldn't be there in the first place, but he's there. I realize you got to work with him, but he needs to have a good stern thumb put on him. So unless you've got something new to add, from our lawyers. They want us to keep it in the gray area all the time. I can understand that, but he's in violation of Cascade Township's PUD.
I gotta be careful to word it the right way. And you have been put in an unfair position with this. But there's 3 different issues. I just want to make sure we're not mixing them. So one, you've got the traditional nuisance ordinance violations, right? Noise, sound, all that kind of stuff.
That's something different.
Yep. 2,
We
you've
would-
got wetland, destruction, rehabilitation,
Yep,
Eagle.
yep,
They move as fast as,
slow as a turtle.
Molasses in January.
yep. But that is the restoration and the violation of wetland. That is that. Seedlings versus that's part of that umbrella. Then you've got the previously issued under the prior board and prior planner special use permit, as far as it's in the scope of land use. That is different than seedlings, and that is its own legal issue that we have a legal opinion on from our attorneys, and it is not black and white. So I just want to,
But it also says he cannot depreciate people's property, which he has done. So
not that clear, but I really feel for you 100%, and I just want to be careful not to overstate. The destruction and rehabilitation is separate legally, even if it's not legally, and as far as our duties go, then whether or not the scope of the,
But you, the board, can dictate that he abides by the original PUD, which he,
and then you know what the PUD says? The PUD is clear as mud. So we.
as
have to-
far as what, it says he cannot,
Clarity.
he cannot depreciate people's property around him.
Maybe some of I gotta be careful. The PUD, it's not as black and white.
Okay, let's have a meeting
And
with
it's
this
going
lawyer.
Forward.
Let's have a meeting then.
We
So
did.
they,
We've
okay,
had
you did,
multiple.
okay. And
We
they
did
said
multiple.
what?
That it's not black.
So
and
what's our
white.
next step? To get him to abide by what he should be doing?
30 seconds.
Lawsuit?
No, maybe. Well, it depends on what he should be doing, how that's interpreted, because we all have different versions of what he should be doing. And if I were you,
Well,
the
the-
next door neighbor, I would have a different version of what this board, what he should be doing.
Well, let's
So
get it in writing what he should be doing then. Let's take the PUD and then put parameters on it and then define it more in detail than the way it is right now. If it's so wide open.
Time's up.
Then let's put
I'm not a lawyer, but I will say that those 3 issues, there's overlaps, but they're different. And what residents want and probably deserve is not necessarily within this, maybe.
what goes back to, the industrial use and, keeping certain businesses in certain areas. He shouldn't have been allowed there in the first place, personal opinion. But he
Personal
is.
opinion shared 100%.
I hear you. So
There's that pesky.
the way
little
I
thing-
look at the PUD,
There's that
he's,
pesky little thing called the law, and unfortunately we have to abide by it, and it's never.
but when I
clear.
read the PUD and he's depreciated people's property, that's in violation of the PUD. That's the way I read it.
Right, I'm new. Everybody knows that, but I do believe he did get a special use permit, and I think, correct?
But he's not using it that way.
Because I think that's part of the gray area.
No, it
there's
is
the
gray area.
PUD and the fact that he did get something approved along the way.
And we're not gonna take, so you want more information and you want swift movement, and I completely get it, and that's fair, but from the township, legally, we're not gonna proceed unless we know we're gonna win. We're not gonna throw out a loser argument. And unfortunately, the cards we've been dealt legally, it's not an automatic winner, even though we want it to be. Legally, I mean, ideally, the state should cover the state's responsibilities, but how's that going? So the townships moved a heck of a lot faster and a heck of a lot more aggressively, and we're doing the best we can.
I hear you.
But our lawyer's gonna give us honest counsel, and that PUD issue isn't a legal winner necessarily. So then we have to decide if it's worth it to put taxpayer money legally at
I hear you.
$200 an hour towards an issue that may be a loser.
Well, then it's time to change how vague that PUD is. So
100%. But
going down the road, it doesn't happen again.
100% done. Absolutely correct. Correct. And I feel very badly that residents were put in this situation. Legally, it's a little different issue. And I gotta be careful because you don't want the supervisor overstating what professionals are paid well to do, but you're not wrong. The problem is you're not right either. Do you know what I'm saying? Depends on how you ask it.
Yep.
And I'm sorry. And we will do what we can.
So what is the board's next step or Cascade's Township's next step?
No, I'll circle back with legal counsel and we can discuss it. Unfortunately,
Can the residents be there?
Yeah,
Can
and
they
that's
be
what
at
I'll-
the township office so we can hear them and voice so they know? I understand you do a really good job, but they need to hear from us too, because they want to be in the gray all the time.
Oh, 100%. That's what we pay. We're not here to take the punches. That's
Right.
what we pay legal firms for.
Right.
So yes, and I just have to, they come privileged and confidential and we just have to make sure that we share it appropriately, but yes,
Okay,
and we will. Thanks for being patient. I'm
Okay.
sorry you're in this position.
thank you.
It's a good learning lesson for how PUDs need to be written. Any other comments?
If any of our Zoom participants would like to participate in this public comment, please raise your hand.
We'll get a meeting scheduled with our planner and you guys can come in and get some of that information. Article 13, board member comments.
Go ahead.
Wish I had an answer for you, Mr. Holcomb. Thanks for coming, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces. New restaurant in township. We hope that you're successful. Please bear with us as we go through the time requirements to get you what you need. Thank you, Kane County Commissioner, for appearing as normal. I don't care if you do live outside the township. And bring your neighbors back next time.
Trustee Kessel, treasurer.
I just had a question for these folks that were here before. I'm not sure I heard your answer. We have advertised that there's a Class C liquor permit available
Yes,
so that anybody that wanted to apply could apply.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Because we told them we'd take action, so if we don't have any other applicants, that'll be easy one.
right. Now there's different degrees of advertisement, but we have met the legal requirements.
We have met that?
Yep.
Okay.
I apologize. It was supposed to be this month, so we'll get to it as soon as we are able. So the next regularly scheduled meeting is in 3 weeks because of Memorial Day. Only one in June instead of two.
Actually, I think there are 2 in June. May is just a longer month, so we have an extra.
Oh, second and fourth.
It's 5 Wednesdays. That's why we don't meet for 3 weeks. Our next meeting is June 14th.
That will be at the latest. Thank you.